The man in the shadows. The lobby was buzzing with life that morning. Gold chandeliers glowed softly above polished marble floors. A gentle classical tune floated in the air. Bellboys rolled carts loaded with designer luggage, and wealthy guests clicked across the floor in heels and shiny leather shoes. Among all the sparkle, no one noticed the quiet man sitting in the corner. He wore a plain black jacket, jeans, and scuffed boots. His dark hair was a little messy, and he hadn't shaved in a few days. He looked like any other tired traveler. He sat near a potted plant, silent, still, watching the world pass by. KeanuReeves had arrived at the hotel hours earlier, hoping for a quiet stay before a private event. He didn't announce who he was. He never did. He liked to observe people before letting them observe him, and that was when she entered. The girl stormed through the revolving doors like she owned the world. Her hair was perfect, long and glossy, cascading down her shoulders. She wore an expensive pink fur coat that swung with every step. Diamond earrings caught the light like stars. Her heels tapped sharply on the marble, demanding attention. Her name was Brooke Kendall, only 24, daughter of a real estate tycoon who owned half the coastline. Brooke didn't wait in lines. She didn't say, please, and she definitely didn't notice people who sat quietly near potted plants. She marched up to the reception desk, her sunglasses still on indoors. Excuse me, she said, snapping her fingers. Why is there a line? I have the Imperial Suite reserved under Kendall, Brooke Kendall. I need my room right now. The receptionist, a kind young woman named Maya, tried to keep her smile. Of course, Miss Kendall, just one moment, please. We have a few guests checking in. Brooke rolled her eyes so hard they nearly fell out. Do I look like someone who waits? I flew first class. I am tired. I need sparkling water and a room with a view, not excuses. People around her started turning their heads. Whispers traveled quickly. Who is she? She's loud. I think she's famous or something. Keanu watched silently from the corner. He had seen this kind of behavior before. Fame, money, ego, wrapped up in a shiny coat of entitlement. But he also saw something else. Something behind her anger. Her words were sharp, but her eyes looked sad, lost. The receptionist gently tapped on the keyboard, doing her best to remain calm. Your suite is being prepared now, Miss Kendall. Would you like to wait in the lounge area? We can bring you something to drink. Fine, Brooke huffed. But I better not be waiting more than 5 minutes. As she turned, she spotted Keanu for the first time. Her lips curled. Wow, she said loudly, pointing at him. Seriously? This hotel just lets anybody in now? I mean, look at this guy, sitting there like he's homeless. Did you get lost, Grandpa? The room went silent. Even the music seemed to stop. Keanu slowly lifted his head. His eyes met hers. Calm, kind, unshaken. He didn't say anything. Brooke kept laughing. What? Nothing to say? Oh, wait. Are you one of those weird motivational speakers? Or maybe a failed actor trying to get noticed? She laughed again, louder this time. Maya's face turned pale. She recognized the man instantly. She had seen every movie. She had read every article. She had watched the documentaries. This was Keanu Reeves. The Keanu Reeves. The same man who quietly donates millions to children's hospitals. The same man who gives up his seat on subways. Who walks in the rain so others can stay dry. The same man who never uses fame to feel better than anyone else. But Brooke didn't know that. She was too busy showing off. This place is going downhill, Brooke muttered, tossing her hair. First, I have to wait, and now there's some creepy guy in a thrift store jacket staring at me. A little boy nearby, maybe 7 years old, stood up from a couch where he had been drawing with crayons. He walked straight to Keanu and held out a small piece of paper. It was a sketch. A cute little version of Neo from The Matrix. He had even written, "You are my hero" at the bottom. Keanu smiled and took the drawing gently. Thank you, he whispered and gave the boy a fist bump. Brooke stared in confusion. What? Was that? An older couple walked past her, nodding warmly at Keanu. So good to see you again, sir, the man said respectfully. Your performance in that cancer awareness film meant so much to us. My wife cried all night. Keanu nodded with humility. I'm glad it helped. Brooke looked like someone had dropped a bucket of ice water on her. Her eyes widened. She slowly turned back to Maya at the front desk. Maya gave a small, knowing smile. Would you like to know who he is, Miss Kendall? Brooke swallowed. Wait. No. Is he? That's Keanu Reeves. Brooke's face drained of color. Flash of panic ran through her mind. The things she had just said, the laughter, the cruel jokes. Oh my God, she whispered under her breath. I called Keanu Reeves a grandpa. The worst part wasn't the embarrassment. It was the way he didn't look angry. He didn't try to embarrass her back. He didn't say a word. He just sat there, calm and gentle. Like it didn't matter to him at all. That made it worse. She walked to the lounge, cheeks burning, heart racing. She took a seat far from anyone else and stared down at her phone, hoping it would swallow her whole. Maya returned to the desk and gave Keanu a special key card. Your suite is ready, Mr. Reeves. Thank you for your patience. He nodded and stood up. As he passed by Brooke, he stopped. She didn't dare look up. But he spoke softly. We all have bad days, he said. But it's not too late to turn them into good ones. Then he walked away. No anger, no sarcasm, just kindness. Brooke sat frozen. Those words hit harder than any insult ever could. It wasn't just guilt that filled her chest. It was the realization that she had been so busy being important that she failed to notice someone who truly was. And now she had a choice to make. What she did next would change everything. But for now, she sat in silence. Not because she was embarrassed, but because something inside her had started to shift. Something small, but real. A beginning. A second chance in silence. Brooke didn't move for a long time. She sat alone in the corner of the hotel lounge, the silence around her louder than any insult she'd ever thrown. Her phone buzzed with messages, selfies, party invites, new shoes her friends just bought. But none of it felt important anymore. Not after what had just happened. The man she mocked. He was a hero to millions. Not because he was rich or famous, but because he was kind, humble, and real. And she had laughed at him like he was nothing. Deep down, a small voice whispered something she didn't want to hear. What if the problem isn't them? What if it's you? She blinked hard and tried to shake the thought. No, she wasn't a bad person. She was just tired, annoyed, misunderstood. Right? But even she couldn't lie to herself for long. That's when Maya came over with a bottle of sparkling water and a glass. Your suite is ready, Miss Kendall, Maya said gently. And I thought this might help. Brooke took the glass slowly. Her hands were shaking. Thank you, she whispered. Maya didn't walk away. Instead, she sat beside her and said softly, I know it's hard sometimes. I've been in that place too. Feeling like you have to be louder than everyone else just to be noticed. Brooke blinked. No one ever said that to her before. You don't have to explain, Maya added. But if you ever want to talk, I'm here. Brooke didn't say anything. Her throat tightened. She wasn't used to kindness without strings. It made her chest ache in a strange, unfamiliar way. A few minutes later, she stood up and followed the bellhop to her suite. The imperial suite was stunning. Golden drapes, soft cream walls, tall windows that overlooked the sea. Everything sparkled. But for the first time in her life, Brooke didn't feel like taking pictures. She sat on the edge of the velvet couch and stared at the skyline. Her mind kept going back to that moment. We all have bad days, but it's not too late to turn them into good ones. His words echoed in her chest like a soft drumbeat. Brooke didn't sleep much that night. Instead, she sat with her thoughts. For once, she didn't scroll, didn't text, didn't check how many likes her last post had. She just sat there, quietly, thinking. The next morning, she went downstairs early, dressed in a plain gray hoodie and sneakers. No diamonds, no designer sunglasses, just herself. Maya was behind the desk again. Brooke walked up slowly. "Hi," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Maya smiled. "Good morning." Brooke glanced down, twisting her fingers. "Do you know if Mr. Reeves is still here?" Maya paused. "He's leaving soon. He'll check out after breakfast." Brooke nodded, her heart pounding. "Is there any way I could talk to him?" "Not long. I want to say something." Maya tilted her head, then gently nodded. "He's in the garden cafe. If you go now, you'll catch him." Brooke thanked her and rushed outside. The garden cafe was quiet, tucked between 2 rows of jasmine and rose bushes. Birds chirped softly in the trees. Sunlight danced through the leaves. And there, at a small table by the fountain, sat Keanu. Was sipping coffee, reading a little paperback book. No bodyguards, no crowd. Just peace. Brooke froze. Every step felt heavy, like she was dragging her past behind her. When she finally reached the table, he looked up. His eyes were gentle. He remembered her. But he didn't look angry. Just patient. "Hi," she said, softly. "I'm sorry to bother you." Keanu nodded. "You're not bothering me." She sat down, unsure if she had the right to do so. But he didn't stop her. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," she blurted out. "About yesterday. I was horrible, rude, and stupid, and I didn't even know who you were." Keanu smiled faintly. "That's okay. I'm just a guy." Brooke shook her head. "No, you're not just a guy. You're kind. You helped that little boy. You remembered that couple, and you didn't make fun of me, even when I deserved it." She looked away, embarrassed. "You probably think I'm shallow, and maybe I am. I mean, look at me. I've lived my whole life thinking money makes you special." Keanu sipped his coffee, then said, "Money makes things easier. It doesn't make people better." Those words hit her hard. "I don't want to be who I was yesterday," she whispered. Keanu studied her quietly. "So don't be." "It's not that easy." "It never is," he replied. "But it starts with one small choice, one kind word, one changed thought." Brooke felt something shift again, like a soft wind blowing away old dust. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. "I wrote this last night. It's not much, just thoughts about what I said, what I felt, and what I want to become." She handed it to him. He took it gently, like it was made of glass. "Thank you," he said. Then he stood up, adjusted his jacket, and looked at her with quiet strength. "Whatever path you choose," he said, "make sure it's one you'd be proud to walk even if no one's watching." Then he walked away, disappearing into the sunlight like a shadow that chose light instead of darkness. Brooke sat at the table for a long time. She didn't cry, but something inside her had broken open, and something else had started to grow. Not pride, not ego. Something simpler. Hope. The apology project. 3 days had passed since Brooke spoke with Keanu in the garden cafe. He had left the hotel without another word, leaving behind nothing but his kindness and that quiet voice that still echoed in her mind. Everywhere she went, she could hear him. "Make sure it's one you'd be proud to walk even if no one's watching." It followed her like a shadow. Not a haunting one, a guiding one. Back in her penthouse suite, surrounded by soft gold walls and crystal lights, Brooke stared out over the ocean, wondering what her life had meant so far. A blur of galas, parties, online likes, hollow friendships, and forced smiles. She thought about how many people she had walked past like they didn't exist. How many words she had said just to sound powerful. How many days she had spent trying to look like something, instead of becoming someone. She had to do something. Not just feel sorry. Not just cry and promise to change. She needed action. That night, she took out a notebook and started to write. Not content. Not posts. Letters. She wrote to the bellboy she snapped at last month for forgetting her luggage. To the waiter she mocked when her soup was cold. To her high school friend, she stopped answering just because she wasn't famous enough. Each letter began with, "I'm sorry." Some ended with, "Thank you." Some ended with, "I hope you're okay." But all of them ended with her name, written with truth for the first time. Just Brooke. No title. No status. Just her. Days passed. Then a week. Then two. One by one, she mailed the letters, handwritten, with her phone number tucked inside in case. They wanted to talk. Most didn't reply, but some did. A message came from the waiter. "Thank you. You have no idea how much I needed this." A bellboy sent a voice note. He sounded surprised. And happy. That was the first time anyone's apologized to me like that. "You made my week." A few didn't accept her apology, but she understood. Forgiveness wasn't a transaction, it was a gift, and not everyone was ready to give it. And that was okay. Then something unexpected happened. She got a letter in return. It was from a girl named Leela, who worked at a homeless shelter downtown. Brooke didn't remember ever meeting her, but the letter said this. "Hi, Brooke. I heard what you've been doing. Someone told me about your letters. I just wanted to say, it's inspiring. Most people with your name and money don't care, but you do. And I think that matters. If you ever want to visit the shelter, we'd love your help." Brooke read the letter 5 times. She wasn't used to people asking for her presence without wanting photos or favors, just help. She folded the letter and held it to her chest. Maybe this was what Keanu meant, doing something because no one's watching. The next morning she wore jeans, a plain sweater, tied her hair in a bun, and took a rideshare to a part of town she hadn't seen in years. It didn't sparkle. There were no gold chandeliers or marble floors, just cracked pavement, tired windows, and people who looked worn down by life. But there was laughter too. Music from a tiny radio, children playing with old tennis balls, and the shelter, small, old, but alive. Lila greeted her at the door. She was tiny, with bright eyes and strong arms. "You came," Lila said. "I'm not sure what I can do," Brooke admitted. "Just being here is a start," Lila replied. "Come on, I'll show you around." They spent the day folding clothes, organizing shelves, and serving warm meals. No one asked who she was. No one cared about her last name. And for the first time in a long time, she felt real. As she cleaned a table, a little girl ran up and hugged her waist. Brooke froze, then slowly knelt down. "Hi," she said gently. "I like your hair," the girl said, smiling. Brooke blinked fast to stop the tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "I like your smile." When the day ended, Brooke stayed behind to help clean. As she was wiping down a counter, Lila handed her a cup of tea. "You're different from what I expected," Lila said. Brooke looked down. "I was someone else before." Lila smiled. "And who are you now?" Brooke thought for a second. "Someone who wants to learn. Someone who wants to give." "Good," Lila said. "Then you're exactly who we need." They hugged quietly, a moment shared between 2 very different lives that had suddenly connected. Brooke walked out of the shelter that evening with tired feet and a full heart. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like an empty, shell-wearing diamonds. She felt human. She felt useful. That night, she couldn't sleep. Not from guilt, but from excitement. Because she knew something was changing. This wasn't just about fixing her past anymore. This was about building her future. And she had one more person she needed to thank before she could really begin. She needed to find Keanu. The search for Keanu. The sky was a soft orange when Brooke opened her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she woke up before her alarm. No makeup, no plans, just purpose. She stood in front of her mirror, not to check her reflection, but to ask herself a quiet question. Am I ready? Not ready to impress, not ready to charm, but ready to face something real. She had done good things over the last few weeks. Apologies, letters, visits to the shelter. But none of it felt complete. Not until she thanked the man who had started it all. Keanu. The man who sat quietly while she tore him down. The man who didn't fight back. The man who spoke only one sentence that cracked open her entire world. But he was gone, left the hotel without a trace. No one knew where he was staying. No one would give out his details, and that made sense. He was private, humble, unreachable by design. But she had to try. She pulled out her laptop and began researching. Not like a fan, but like someone on a mission. First, she checked film schedules. He wasn't filming anything currently. Then she looked up his charity work, children's hospitals, cancer research, homeless shelters. She called a few of the places he had supported. She didn't ask for information. She only told them what he had done for her and thanked them for continuing his kindness. Most didn't reply. But one small clinic in a quiet part of the city responded. A nurse named Janet picked up the phone. "I'm not supposed to share anything," Janet said, "but if you're really trying to thank him, you might want to stop by here tomorrow morning. No promises, just a hunch." Brooke didn't sleep that night. The next day, she arrived at the clinic just after sunrise. It was a tiny building with chipped paint and flower pots outside the entrance. Nothing fancy, but it smelled like hope. She stepped inside. The waiting room was full of parents holding sick children, older folks reading magazines, and a few nurses with kind smiles. She sat in the corner, trying not to hope too hard. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Then the door opened, and he walked in, Keanu Reeves in jeans and a soft gray hoodie, carrying a box of new books and puzzles for the children's room. He didn't notice her at first. He smiled at the receptionist, set the box on the desk, and started walking toward the hallway. Brooke stood, up, heart pounding. "Excuse me," she said softly. He turned, his eyes met hers. There was no shock, no anger, just calm recognition. "You again," he said gently. She walked toward him slowly. Her hands were shaking. "I didn't know how to reach you," she whispered. "I hope this isn't crossing a line. I needed to say thank you." He tilted his head. "You already did." "No," she said quickly. "Not really. Not the way I needed to." She took a deep breath. After that day in the hotel, I went home and felt like my whole life was a costume. All the luxury, the parties, the likes, none of it mattered, because I realized I didn't like the person underneath. Keanu listened silently. "You didn't humiliate me," she continued. "You didn't call me out or try to hurt me back. You just forgave me with your silence. And that broke something open inside me. In a good way." She paused, voice trembling. "So I've been changing. I've written letters. I've been volunteering. I've tried to do better, not just say better. And none of it would have started without you." A long silence followed. Then Keanu said, "You did all that?" She nodded, trying not to cry. "You're brave," he said quietly. "No," she replied. "I was cruel. Now I'm just trying to be honest." He smiled softly. "Honesty is rare." They stood in the hallway, two very different lives connected by one quiet moment. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "Why come here? Why give so much when no one sees it?" Keanu looked out the window at the sky. "Because I know what it's like to feel alone," he said. "To be invisible. To be seen only for what people think you are, not who you really are. So when I help others, I'm helping the version of me that once needed it." Brooke swallowed the lump in her throat. "Can I help too?" she asked. "You already are," he said. "Just by showing up." They spent the next 2 hours together, sorting books, comforting kids, folding blankets, no cameras, no fans, just quiet work that mattered. At one point, a boy with no hair sat in Brooke's lap, reading a picture book. He smiled up at her and said, "You're like a real princess." She blinked fast and smiled. "Only if you're my prince." He giggled and hugged her tightly. Keanu watched from across the room, his expression soft. That night, as they walked outside, Keanu turned to her. "What will you do now?" he asked. She didn't hesitate. "Keep showing up. she said. Even when no one's watching. He nodded. Good answer. Then he gave her something she didn't expect. A phone number. If you ever need help, he said, or just want to talk, you have a friend now. Brooke smiled, eyes shining. Thank you. He waved goodbye and walked into the evening light, and just like that he was gone again. But this time she didn't feel like she lost something. This time, she felt like she had found herself. The breaking point, the days that followed, felt different for Brooke. Not because the world had changed, but because she had. She woke up early, worked quietly at the shelter twice a week, and spent time reading stories to kids in the clinic where she had met Keanu again. People started noticing her, not for her clothes or last name, but for the way she listened, the way she helped without expecting anything in return. And yet inside her there was still one thing she hadn't faced. Her father, Nicholas Kendall, was a powerful man, rich, sharp, and always busy. He had built empires from glass towers, bought half the coast, and raised Brooke like she was a brand. To him, weakness was failure, and kindness was a distraction. He didn't understand change unless it came with profit. Brooke knew he had heard whispers. A driver told him she was spending time in poor neighborhoods. A family friend mentioned she'd been seen folding laundry at a shelter. Even the housekeeper asked her one day, "Miss, are you feeling okay?" But her father hadn't called. Not once. So she decided to call him. "Dad," she said over the phone, her voice steady. "I want to have dinner. Just you and me. No business, no staff." There was silence. Then a short reply. "Fine. Tonight. Villa Lumiere, 7 sharp." Villa Lumiere was the fanciest restaurant in town. She hadn't been there since her welcome back party last year, an event filled with champagne and fake compliments. She arrived early wearing a simple black dress, no jewelry, no makeup. She looked in the mirror and saw herself, just herself, and felt proud. Her father arrived on time, of course. Tailored suit, slicked hair, strong cologne. He looked around like he owned the building. "You look different," he said as he sat down. "Everything okay?" "Yes," Brooke replied. "Everything's finally okay." He didn't smile. "I've been hearing things," he said, pouring himself a glass of wine. "You've been volunteering?" "Yes," she said. "I'm learning, growing." He raised an eyebrow. "What's this really about? Guilt? A new trend?" Brooke took a breath. "No, Dad. It's not a trend. It's the first time I've felt real in years." Her father leaned back. "Real? Brooke, you've had everything. You live in a penthouse. You fly private. We gave you the best of everything." "But not the best of me," she said quietly. "I've been rude, selfish, I hurt people, and someone showed me that I could be better." "Someone?" His voice sharpened. "Is this about a boy?" "Not a boy," she replied. "A man. Someone who didn't judge me, who sat quietly while I made a fool of myself. Someone who forgave me without a word." Her father scoffed. "Let me guess. This is that actor. Reeves something?" "Keanu," she said. "Yes?" "Brooke," he said coldly. "You're wasting your time. Those people, those places, they're not your world. You belong at the top. Don't forget who you are." Her hands clenched under the table. "I'm not forgetting who I am," she said, voice trembling. "I'm discovering it." Her father looked at her like she had spoken in another language. "You want to serve soup? Fold blankets? Fine. But don't expect me to support it. This isn't what I raised you for." She looked down, sadness filling her chest like water. But then, she looked up, and for the first time in her life, she didn't flinch. "You didn't raise me to be cruel, Dad," she said softly. "But I became that anyway. Now I'm trying to be better, and whether you understand it or not, I'm not going back." He didn't reply, just stared. Dinner ended in silence. She walked out into the night alone. But she wasn't sad. Not really. She had stood up for who she was becoming, and it mattered more than any applause ever had. As she walked through the quiet streets, her phone buzzed, a message from Keanu. "Heard you talk to your dad, proud of you." A small smile spread across her face. "How did you know?" she replied. "Someone at the shelter overheard. Your voice is louder than you think." Her heart warmed. "Thank you." Then, after a moment, another message came in. "You've come a long way. Want to help me with something big?" She stared at the screen, then typed, "Yes, anything." The stage of truth. 2 weeks after the dinner with her father, Brooke stood backstage at a community auditorium in a part of town she never would have visited before. The room behind the curtains smelled like old wood and fresh paint. Folding chairs had been set out for the audience. Kids from the shelter sat in the front row, bouncing with excitement. Staff members and volunteers from the clinic filled the rest of the seats. There were no flashing cameras, no reporters, just people who cared. Keanu had asked her to come. "There's a fundraiser tonight," he had said. "Not a fancy one. No suits, just stories, real ones." "I think you should tell yours." Brooke had panicked at first. "Me? Speak in front of people?" "Yes," he said calmly, "because someone out there is just like the girl you used to be, and they need to know they can change too." She had almost said no, but then she remembered the girl she had been in the hotel lobby. How lost she had felt, even while pretending to be in control, and how one stranger's silence had cracked her walls open. So now she stood backstage, her palms sweaty, her heart racing. Keanu walked over, dressed in his usual jeans and jacket. "You're going to do great," he said simply. "What if they judge me?" she asked. "Then you speak anyway," he said. "Because the ones who need to hear it will listen." She nodded, and then the announcer called her name. Brooke stepped onto the stage. The lights weren't blinding. They were soft, like candlelight. The room fell silent. She walked to the microphone, took a deep breath, and began. "Hi. My name is Brooke. And a month ago, I was the kind of person I don't ever want to be again." The room stayed still. Listening, I thought being rich meant being important. I thought talking down to people made me strong. I thought kindness was something poor people gave when they had nothing else. She looked out at the faces. Some were surprised. Some were smiling. Some looked like they already knew her story before she told it. "I humiliated someone who didn't deserve it," she said. "I made fun of a man I didn't recognize. A man who had every reason to fire back at me and instead chose kindness." She paused, her voice trembling. That man was Keanu Reeves. The room murmured softly. A few heads turned toward where Keanu sat quietly in the back. And when he said just one sentence, "And we all have bad days, but it's not too late to turn them into good ones," he didn't just forgive me. He gave me a second chance, without ever asking for anything. A tear slid down her cheek, but she didn't wipe it away. "I've spent the last month writing apology letters, folding blankets, reading to kids, and learning to shut up and listen. Not because I'm trying to look good, but because I want to be good." A small clap came from the front row. A little girl stood up and clapped harder. Soon others followed, but Brooke raised her hand gently. "Wait," she said. "Don't clap for me." The room quieted again. "If you want to clap, clap for the people who show up every day without applause. The nurses, the shelter staff, the drivers, the janitors, the kids who smile even when their lives are hard. Clap for them." And then she stepped away from the mic. But as she did, the room erupted. Not in wild cheering, but in warm, honest applause. Not for a rich girl who had changed, but for a human being who had tried. Backstage, Keanu was waiting. "You did it," he said, offering her a bottle of water. "I was terrified," she admitted. "So was I, the first time I stood on a real stage." "Really?" he nodded. "Truth always feels scary at first." She looked at him for a moment. "Why me?" she asked. "Why did you care enough not to fight back?" He thought for a second. "Because someone once showed me grace when I didn't deserve it," he said. "And I've been trying to pass that moment on ever since." Brooke blinked slowly. "Can I do the same?" she asked. He smiled. You already are. That night, they stayed late after the fundraiser, helping to clean up folding chairs and picking up napkins. They talked with kids, shared tea with volunteers, and laughed with people who didn't care about last names. And when Brooke walked out into the night, there were no flashing lights or camera clicks, just stars overhead and a soft wind that made her feel like she could finally breathe. She wasn't the girl from the hotel lobby anymore. She was someone new, someone real, and she would never go back.